Our speaker is a nun of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, currently posted at the Vivekananda Retreat in Ridgely Manor. She first came in contact with the Ramakrishna mission in 1967. She met her guru, Swami Satprakashananda, at the Vedanta Society of St. Louis. She has traveled to India extensively on various visits, and she lived there for 12 years. She's been active in the publication work of the Ramakrishna Order, editing numerous books and articles, and writing 2 books as well, The Divine World of the Alvars and Indian Saints and Mystics. So without any further ado, please welcome Pravrajika Shuddhatmaprana from the Vedanta Society of Southern California.
So the poet says, and this is a little bit different from the song that we just heard. Who is this terrible woman, dark as the sky at midnight? Who is this woman dancing over the field of battle like a blue lotus that floats on a crimson sea of blood? Who is she, clad alone in the infinite for a garment, rolling her 3 great eyes in frenzy and savage fury? Under the weight of her tread, the earth itself is trembling. And Shiva, her mighty husband, who wields the fearful trident, lies like a lifeless corpse beneath her conquering feet. So who is this strange goddess? And why, of all the gods and goddesses in Hinduism, would Ramakrishna choose to worship and invoke her as his personal chosen deity? Some of you, perhaps, may have asked this very question. And many of you have seen various pictures of Kali, and you have probably also seen photos of the very image of Kali that Ramakrishna worshipped. And maybe even you have been to India and seen the very image in person that Ramakrishna worshipped. So you know what she looks like. She has a black complexion, 4 arms, 3 eyes, as many images of Hindu deities have. But she also wears a girdle of severed arms around her waist and has a garland of skulls around her neck. She has a sword in one left arm and a severed head in another, while her right arms are held in gestures that bestow boons and grant freedom from fear. Her tongue is sticking out, and she is standing on the prostrate form of Shiva. Though she is said to be dressed in the infinite, that is, without clothes, her image in Dakshineshwar, as many of you know, is always dressed in a beautiful silk sari, and she wears many ornaments. And she is very beautiful. Perhaps you also know some of the symbolism behind this image. Her dark color represents the infinite. Her 3 eyes represent knowledge of the past, present, and future. Her red tongue represents rajas, the quality of activity, while her white teeth pressed on her tongue represents sattva, the quality of calmness. So this represents the quality of activity being controlled by calmness. The garland of 50 skulls represents the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, which also means speech. The sword in her upper left hand cuts our ignorance or bondage, while the severed head in the lower left hand is said to bestow wisdom. As Kali stands on Shiva, who represents the absolute aspect of God, so Kali represents the cosmic power or Shakti that brings creation into being. So this is, in short, what it all means. But still, with all the benign forms of gods and goddesses, why Kali? Every year at the Vedanta Center in Southern California, someone makes a large image of Kali that will be worshipped at the annual Kali Puja festival in Hollywood. They need a new image every year because the one that is worshipped is afterwards immersed in water, as the traditional custom in India. Now, often it has happened that one of the nuns has made the image. And one year, a nun in Santa Barbara was making the image, and she went to a store that sells Hindu puja items to buy some decorations for the image. The owner of the store was a Gujarati woman, and she was very pleased that a Western woman was buying Hindu puja items, and she asked what image the items were for. When the nun told her it was an image of Kali, the woman's face fell. Why Kali? Why not Lakshmi? Why not Saraswati? Why Kali? I don't know what answer the nun gave, if she could give an answer. So, why did Ramakrishna choose Kali? It may seem from a general reading of Ramakrishna's biography that he did not have any interest in the worship of the Divine Mother, and especially in the form of Kali, until after his brother Ram Kumar came to the Dakshineshwar temple to become priest. But we learn from the biography of Swami Subodhananda that even before Ramakrishna came to Dakshineshwar, that is, when he was living in the Jamapukar area of Calcutta, he began spending much time at the Siddheshwari Kali temple of Tanzania. Ramakrishna was just a teenager then and was helping his eldest brother Ram Kumar run a Sanskrit school. So the Siddheshwari temple was very close to the school and was owned by Swami Subodhananda's family, and Ramakrishna knew the family very well. The recorder of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, also lived very close to that temple. Once, many years later, he was showing some devotees the place where Ram Kumar's Sanskrit school used to be. Later, a Shyam Sundar, a Radhakrishna temple was established there, and it still is there. Told the devotees, at that time, Ramakrishna performed worship in the house of Raja Digambar Mitra. He would carry the offered rice, fruits, and sweets that he had received from that house and sit in front of the Kali temple. People knew that the handsome young man had a good voice, so they would ask him to sing. He would sing to the Divine Mother, then return to his home, distributing the prasad to the people. But in another version of the story, indicates that the men of the neighborhood knew that Ramakrishna was something of a soft touch. They would ask him to sing in front of the temple, yes, but meanwhile, they would ransack his offerings, which were tied up in a towel. And after singing, Ramakrishna would leave laughing and shaking out his towel. Ramakrishna was brought up in a family that many of you know that had worshipped Raghavir, that is Rama, for generations. But his father also worshipped the goddess Sitala in a consecrated pot, as also Shiva. After Ramakrishna's sacred thread ceremony was performed, he was then eligible to worship these deities in the family shrine. And according to Swami Sardananda, while performing the worship, Ramakrishna became so absorbed that he experienced Bhava Samadhi and sometimes had various spiritual visions. It is also said that Ramakrishna's eldest brother, Ram Kumar, was very devoted to the Divine Mother. According to Swami Sardananda, as a result of studying the scriptures, Ram Kumar had become very drawn to the worship of the Divine Mother. And when he was still living in Kamapurka, he was initiated into a Shakti mantra by an adept guru. One day, while worshiping the goddess, Ram Kumar had a wonderful vision. With her finger, the goddess wrote on his tongue a mantra for the attainment of perfection in astrology. And after that, whenever he saw someone who was ill, he could tell whether that person would be cured. Because of that power, whatever he predicted came true, and he became a well-known soothsayer. Later, when Ramkumar and Ramakrishna were living at Dakshineshwar, Ramkumar asked Ramakrishna to be initiated into a Shakti mantra also, so that he too could worship the Divine Mother Kali. Swami Saradananda said that Ramakrishna decided to take initiation from Kenaram Bhattacharya, who often came to the Dakshineshwar temple and was highly regarded as a devout spiritual aspirant. Swami Saradananda said, "We have heard that as soon as the master was initiated, he went into ecstasy, and that Kenaram was amazed by his extraordinary devotion." So we see that Ramakrishna had a deep connection with the goddess Kali even before he started to formally worship her. But here we could ask, did Ramakrishna actually choose Mother Kali? Or did Mother Kali choose Ramakrishna? And what was the purpose of this connection between them? Like our first question, these questions also cannot be answered so easily. This is because, as you know, many of you know, Ramakrishna was not an ordinary spiritual aspirant. It is obvious looking at his life that he was here on a divine mission. But again, was it his mission or her mission? Ramakrishna himself would not easily refer to it as his mission. Generally, when he was on a normal plane of consciousness, he considered himself to be a child of the Mother. And he often said that he was simply an instrument in the hands of the Mother, and that it was she who blessed the devotees through him, and that it was she who laid out the plan for his life, such as practicing sadhanas of various religious paths. As Swami Saradananda said, the Mother had made him understand clearly that it was she who had put that desire into his mind to see her in various forms and by different spiritual paths. Yet, there are other instances when Ramakrishna directly told the devotees that they should meditate on him or give him the power of attorney, that is, surrender to him. Again, he told many of the devotees, "He who came as Rama and as Krishna has come now in this body," pointing to himself. All these indicate that he was very much aware of himself as a divine incarnation with a mission. So this contradiction can be resolved when we understand that Ramakrishna regarded himself and Mother Kali as one. One day at the Kasipur Garden House, when Ramakrishna was dying of throat cancer, he said, placing his hand on his heart, "There are two persons in this. One, the Divine Mother. Yes, one is she, and the other is her devotee. It is the devotee who broke his arm, and it is the devotee who is now ill. Do you understand?" Again, speaking to M one day, he made it very plain when he said, "Know for certain that I and she," that is, Kali of Dakshineshwar, "are one, and there is no difference. If you think of her day and night, you will be thinking of me." Thus, there is actually no such question of one choosing the other. Ramakrishna and the Divine Mother Kali were one and the same divine being. But sometimes the divine being manifested more as Kali, sometimes more as Ramakrishna, and sometimes as both of them together. So when Ramakrishna talks about Mother Kali instructing him, or that something he did was the Mother's will, we have to think of it in this sense. Moreover, Ramakrishna was told on at least 3 occasions by God or the Divine Mother to remain in bhavamukha, that is, to remain in a state in which his mind was on the border between the absolute and the relative states of consciousness. So we can probably consider this to be the state of his consciousness. He did not have a limited I sense as we have. Rather, his I sense was united with the universal or cosmic I of the Divine Mother. So his mission was the Divine Mother's mission. And we could go on and on discussing what this mission was, but I think the whole thing can be summed up in something that Swami Vivekananda said. He said, in this age, the Brahma Kundalini, the mother who is responsible for the creation, preservation, and destruction of the universe, has been awakened by the fervent prayers of Sri Ramakrishna. Here, Swamiji was referring to the cosmic aspect of the Kundalini. And regarding Swamiji's statement, Swami Shivananda commented, "No wonder the individual Kundalini will be awakened now. That is why we see the symptoms of a great spiritual upsurge everywhere." In other words, the universal spiritual consciousness has been awakened, so no one anywhere can remain unaffected. Again, the more we make an effort to connect with this consciousness, the more we will gain from it. And this was the mission of the Divine Mother and of Ramakrishna. We can understand that the worship of a cosmic goddess was very ancient. But what did this worship of Kali mean to Ramakrishna? Ramakrishna had various terms that he used to describe the philosophy behind the worship of the Divine Mother. And these are the same terms that the Vedanta philosophy uses: Prakriti, Shakti, and sometimes Maya or Mahamaya. The term Shakti is especially used in the sense of power or energy, and in this sense, it is also used to refer to the Kundalini. As Ramakrishna said, the primordial energy, that is, the Adya Shakti, resides in all bodies as the Kundalini. She is like a sleeping snake coiled up. But as we just saw, she not only resides in individuals, she also has a cosmic aspect as well. The term Prakriti was originally used in the dualistic Sankhya philosophy of India. Swami Sardananda writes of Ramakrishna's rather humorous explanation to the devotees of these two cosmic principles in the Sankhya philosophy, Purusha and Prakriti. He said, one day we were discussing the Sankhya philosophy. Describing the origin of the universe from Purusha and Prakriti, the master told us, according to Sankhya, Purusha is not the doer. It is static. Prakriti does everything. Purusha is a witness to those actions, but Prakriti cannot do anything by herself. She needs the help of Purusha. Now, the master's audience included office clerks, accountants, doctors, lawyers, school boys. None of them were scholars. When they heard the master's explanation, they just stared at each other. So the master understood their confusion and said, "Well, haven't you seen what happens in a house during a wedding ceremony? After issuing orders, the master sits and smokes tobacco from a hubble-bubble. The mistress, though, runs around the house and supervises all the activities. Her sari is stained with turmeric, and she welcomes all the ladies. With hand gestures and animated face, she reports to her husband from time to time. This has been done this way, and that has been done that way. This is still to be done, but that other will not be done." While smoking, the master listens, and nodding his head, he assents to everything, saying, "Yes, yes. It is just like that." Now, everyone laughed after listening to the master's explanation of Sankhya, but they understood it. So here in Ramakrishna's illustration, we can understand that in the Sankhya philosophy, there is this dualism. Purusha and Prakriti are two separate principles, though Prakriti is dependent on Purusha. Yet later, this same term, Prakriti, evolved in the non-dualistic philosophy of Advaita to mean Shakti. And Ramakrishna often used the word in this sense. Once he said, according to Vedanta, Brahman and its power, Purusha and Prakriti, are identical. That is, they are not two different entities. The same substance appears sometimes as Purusha and sometimes as Prakriti. Now again, the devotees were confused. Swami Saradananda said, when he saw that we did not understand this, the master said, do you know how it is? It's like a snake. Sometimes it moves and sometimes it remains motionless. When it is motionless, it represents the nature of Purusha. Prakriti is then united with Purusha and they have become one. But when the snake moves, Prakriti is then working, as it were, separating herself from Purusha. So in this last example, Ramakrishna used the words Purusha and Prakriti in the same way that he used the terms Brahman and Shakti. But besides the example of the snake moving and still, he would give other examples too, such as milk and its whiteness, or fire and its power to burn. That is, just as you cannot separate milk from its whiteness or fire from its power to burn, you cannot separate Brahman and Shakti. They are one and the same. Now, Ramakrishna actually made some very interesting comments to M about the worship of Shakti that we do not find in the Gospel. You can find this in Swami Chaitanananda's book on M. One day he said to M, he who is Brahman, he is Shakti, and also the Divine Mother. Without acknowledging Shakti, no one can understand what Brahman is. Brahman can become manifest only through Shakti. What is fire? It is something that has the power to burn. Fire would become useless if it could not burn anything. As fire and its power to burn are no different, so Brahman and Shakti are the same. When we describe them, they seem to be two different things, but in reality they are one. The one has become the many. That is the manifestation of his power. Then Ramakrishna said to M, and I want to especially emphasize this point because we'll come back to it later. How is it possible to realize Brahman without taking refuge in Shakti? The words that are used to call on him, the sound that is used to worship him, those are all functions of Shakti. You, speaking to M, have originated from Shakti, and you move and walk by means of her power. As the song says, thou art the moving force, and I the mere machine. I am the chariot, and thou the charioteer. I move alone as you, O Mother, movest me. So if we move and walk and speak by means of her power, then why are we in this delusion? Because she, this Shakti, is also Mahamaya, the great enchantress. She deludes everyone. As the poet says, when such delusion veils the world through Mahamaya's spell, that Brahma is bereft of sense and Vishnu loses consciousness, then what hope is left for us? In the Advaita philosophy, this delusion is done in two ways. There is the avarana Shakti, the power that veils or hides the reality from us, just as a screen hides whatever is behind it. Then there is the vikshepa Shakti, the power of projection. It projects this world of name and form and duality. And under this aspect, we become enchanted with this world of duality, and we do not seek the reality underneath it. So what hope is left for us if this Shakti, this power that controls the universe, is the very same power that deludes us? According to Ramakrishna, Mahamaya deludes us, yes, but she can also reveal the truth and grant liberation. Grace is there also. As he says, if we take refuge in her, it is possible to become free from this delusion, to realize Brahman and attain supreme bliss. Why? Because she is also the mother, the divine mother of the universe. It's not possible to know exactly when the universal goddess became worshipped as a mother. Probably the recognition of power associated with motherhood came in very ancient times. So this worship of the universal goddess as an expression of the power of motherhood also is very ancient. But this is not quite the same as the worship of the goddess as a mother in a devotional sense, as we see in Ram Prasad or Kamalakanta or in Ramakrishna's life. In the Devi Mahatmyam, it is the Chandi, which was probably written around the 5th or 6th century, the goddess has both a benign and a terrible aspect, but she is always the powerful goddess who destroys evil and protects the gods. And though there are a group of these goddesses called matrikas, or mothers, who near the end are absorbed into the body of the great goddess, she herself is only once in all the 700 verses of the Chandi addressed as mother. Rather, she is invariably addressed as the Devi, or goddess, or by one of her many names, such as Ambika or Narayani. Her aspect in the Chandi is too formidable to think of her as a mother. The portrayal of the goddess as a mother in a devotional sense seems to have come soon after in South India. There, the goddess Shri, or Lakshmi, was regarded very early as a consort of Vishnu, as the giver of everything that auspicious, and gradually also as the mediator between the devotee and the Lord. And as this last aspect became more and more stressed, she became thought of more as a mother. Parasara Bhatta was a son of one of Ramanuja's very close disciples. He wrote in his Sri Guna Ratnakosha, "Having caused the Lord to forget our sins, you make us your very own children, so you are our mother." But of course, Sri Lakshmi always has a beautiful form and has a totally benign aspect, unlike the goddess Kali. In Pandharpur in Maharashtra also, Rukmini is regarded as much the mother of the devotees as she is the consort of Vishnu. So it is very easy to regard these consorts of Vishnu as mother. But I believe the devotional movement that was started in the 16th century by Sri Chaitanya, which later spread throughout North India, could not help but affect the Shaktas, the worshippers of the Divine Mother in North India. This movement, started by Chaitanya, had its emphasis on a relationship with God. So it was ready-made for the worship of the goddess as a mother. Before this, the goddess was worshipped by the Shaktas more for power. But after this time, we see the rise of poet saints among the Shaktas, like Ram Prasad, Kamalakanta, Premik, and others, who all worshipped the goddess as mother. We should also keep in mind from what we have seen that this evolution of the goddess as a mother was, as Ramakrishna would say, done by her at her will. But how do we conceive of a fierce-looking goddess like Kali? How do we think of her as a mother? Perhaps these saints had visions and they could do it, but what about us? Swami Swahanandaji Maharaj had an answer for this. Maybe some of you have heard this. Whenever anyone would voice a doubt about the worship of Mother Kali, he would say, "Would you rather have a namby-pamby mother? Or do you want someone who will fight for you?" And he'd go like this, "Fight for you." Yes, Kali is certainly not namby-pamby. But then we could argue Durga and Jagadhatri, they also carry weapons, and they do not have such a terrifying aspect. I think what Heinrich Zimmer says in reference to the symbols and mythology of India can also be applied to the deities in India. They are not just something we can intellectualize. The mythologies, he says, are effective primarily on a subconscious level, touching intuition, feeling, and imagination. Their details impress themselves on the memory, soak down, and shape the deeper stratification of the psyche. The myths and symbols of India resist intellectualization and reduction to fixed significations. Such treatment would only sterilize them of their magic. Again, he says, the mythology of India stirs and feeds the unconscious. So I think this is true with regard to the deities as well. Deities like Kali, Durga, Rama, Shiva, and others, they affect us on another level, an unconscious level. We don't know why we are drawn to them. Too much intellectualization is not good. Yet that does not mean we cannot ask ourselves, what is this image of Kali saying to me? We gave some of the symbolism of this image at the beginning, but there are a few more points we could add that may have a deeper impact on our understanding. First of all, the name Kali, as we said, refers to her color, which is black or dark blue, and this represents the infinite. But her name also refers to time. That itself gives us a clue to her function, because time, space, and causation are all processes of Maya, the great illusion. Time, as we all know, truly is the all-destroyer. Nothing in this world can escape destruction due to time. As we said before, Kali has 4 arms representing the dualities of this world. Her 2 right arms represent the benign aspect. She bestows fearlessness and boons with those, while her 2 left arms, holding a sword and a severed head, and much of the rest of her, they represent the terrible aspect. So here we have her function of causation, creating and destroying, as well as of the dual experience in this world. Everything comes from her, and everything dissolves back into her. Again, she is standing on, or subduing, you might say, Shiva, the transcendent aspect of God, the ultimate reality beyond name and form, and beyond dualities. So this, you could say, is her function of the finite, which is within space, veiling the infinite. Thus, Kali is herself the Maya that we must recognize and worship in order to realize the infinite. Yet, she is also the infinite. Kali and Shiva are 2 aspects of the same reality, like fire and its power to burn. So, what do we have here? In spite of the fact that one part of her is offering us fearlessness and boons, the major part of her is terrifying. She is Mahamaya, the great illusion herself, and she looks like the embodiment of death. Death, as we all know, is terrifying. Yet, death is a natural process of life. Why should something that is perfectly natural terrify us? Well, it terrifies us because we are in complete ignorance of it. Mahamaya, made up of time, space, and causation, has deluded us so much that we cannot even be sure of our own existence after the death of our body. So Kali, as Swami Vivekananda himself says, is the symbol of death. As he says in his poem, Kali the Mother, "For terror is thy name, death is in thy breath, and every shaking step destroys a world forever. Thou time, the all-destroyer, come, O Mother, come." So Swamiji is asking us to welcome death and let her destroy everything. Then he says, "Who dares misery love and hug the form of death, dance in destruction's dance? To him the Mother comes." So you have to love misery and hug the form of death and dance in destruction's dance. All of these are prerequisites, not just one or another. They all have to be there. Who will hug death when they are happy? And who wants to be miserable? Everyone wants to be happy and happy alone. Yet when misery comes, as it always does, that very misery can also become an ego thing. It can become like a badge that we wear, of showing how much we suffer. But hugging the form of death does not mean suicide. You must, at the same time, be able to dance with the Mother in her dance of destruction. And what is being destroyed? What is this death? It is, in reality, the death of our ego. Like our bodies, we identify so much with our ego that it seems to us we can't even exist without the ego. But little do we realize that when the ego dies, there is no more death for us. As they say, nature abhors a vacuum. So also, when the ego departs, the Lord, the real self, comes in. Ramakrishna says again and again, when the I dies, all troubles cease. This is because, along with our ego, all our desires, our attachments and aversions, our anger, fear, jealousy, and other passions, all these die because they are rooted in the ego. And what a relief when they die. But how is it that Swamiji, of all people, could revel in this terrible aspect? This is Swamiji we are talking about, the ever-free soul who had the compassionate heart of a Buddha. The answer that Swamiji seems to give in his poem is that Kali is worshipped solely for liberation. And for Swamiji, liberation is everything. Durga is often worshipped in households for fame, beauty, progeny, etc. Lakshmi is worshipped for wealth and everything that is auspicious. Saraswati is worshipped, especially by children, for knowledge. And yes, you could say that they are all aspects of the same Divine Mother. It is true. And it is acknowledged even in the Kali temples in Calcutta. Go to any Kali temple in Calcutta today, and on the day of Saraswati Puja, you will find they are worshiping her as Saraswati. On the day of Jagadatri Puja, they are worshiping her as Jagadatri. But Kali herself is not generally worshipped for anything but liberation, at least nowadays after Ramakrishna. If you want liberation, you must give up everything, even the ego. In fact, liberation is really what she represents. Except for her right arms, everything else about Kali is terrifying. And her form makes us think, must we go through suffering to attain our goal? Yet her right arms give us assurance that grace is also there. Moreover, her face and her form, what seemingly we must pass through to get beyond form to the ultimate reality, are actually beautiful. This gives us assurance that the ultimate reality does lie beyond her form, and that it is truly our desired goal. But still, who among us would want to hug the form of death? Who wants to love misery, even for the sake of liberation? Isn't there supposed to be a personal God in this, God with all the auspicious qualities? We expect the Lord to be compassionate, to remove our difficulties, like our suffering, like the song in the beginning said. We expect him to rescue us from sufferings. To us, that is his job, his reason for being. And on top of it, we can get liberation from him too. So, okay, if Swamiji loves suffering, fine. Let's go to Ramakrishna about this. But what does Ramakrishna have to say? Well, surprisingly, nothing. If we go through the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we never find Ramakrishna telling us to pray to the Lord to be free from suffering. For him, talking about suffering is almost beside the point. Rather, he encourages the devotees to pray only for pure, motiveless love for God and for knowledge and discrimination. And he never talks about the Lord intervening in devotees' lives to remove their suffering. Even when Swami Vivekananda went to Ramakrishna to ask him to help his family after he had lost his father and was living in poverty. Ramakrishna, well, you ask the mother about it, see. And of course, Swamiji couldn't do it. In one instance, when M relayed a conversation he had had with Vidyasagar about Genghis Khan's slaughter of 100,000 people, they wanted an answer. How could God let this happen? But what was Ramakrishna's reaction? He said, is it possible to understand God's action and his motive? He creates, preserves, and destroys. Can we ever understand why he destroys? I say to the Divine Mother, "O Mother, I do not need to understand. Please give me love for thy lotus feet." The aim of life is to attain devotion. As for other things, the mother knows best. I have come to the garden to eat mangoes. What is the use of my calculating the number of trees, branches, and leaves? I only eat mangoes. I don't need to know the number of trees and leaves. And this is coming from one whose Divine Mother has a sword in her arm. So we see when Ramakrishna talks about God, it is to encourage devotees to have yearning for God, to have love for God free from all motives, including the motive of being free from suffering. Now, it's not that Ramakrishna did not feel that God was compassionate. Once, when he was talking with some Sikhs, they said to him, "God is compassionate." And he replied, "We are his children. Does compassion to one's children mean much? Well, won't those who say that God is compassionate ever understand that we are God's children and not someone else's?" So this is what Ramakrishna puts stress on. We are God's very own. This is how we should think of him, and this is how we should relate to him or her in all our actions. Pain and suffering are part of this world of duality. If we want happiness, we will automatically get suffering. They are two sides of the same coin. And this is what Kali shows us. We have to accept them, for they are part of her and part of this world. Yet they come and go. They are transitory. But God is our own forever. He or she alone is real. Do we really understand what it means to have the Lord come in our lives? Do we understand? Can we understand what it takes for that to happen? It's no small thing. Everything must go, and Kali takes us there. This is where she reveals her grace. She holds up her hand, showing the Abhoya mudra, the gesture saying, "Don't be afraid. It may seem difficult, but hold on to me and I shall help you." Then another hand displays the Varda mudra, the gesture of bestowing boons, which says, "I shall give you everything you need to accomplish this." But after all this, have we really answered the question, why Kali? Maybe the question cannot be answered. But for me, I find some answer from some things that both Swamiji and Ramakrishna said. First, Swamiji once told Sister Nivedita, "You see, I cannot but believe there is somewhere a great power that thinks of herself as feminine and called Kali and Mother." Again, he said, "These gods are not merely symbols. They are forms that the devotees have seen." So perhaps we should say that Kali wants to be worshipped now and worshipped as a mother. As we saw before, the evolution of the goddess as a mother could only have come from her, and Kali is the form she has taken now. At least we might conclude that the time has come to worship Kali as the universal mother. Remember, Swamiji said, in this age, the Brahma Kundalini, the mother who is responsible for the creation, preservation, and destruction of the universe, has been awakened by the fervent prayers of Sri Ramakrishna. And this awakening affects all women, men too, but especially women, women all over the world. So I believe that this is the age of motherhood, of divine motherhood, as God is mother, all of it. Kali, with all her frightening features, wants us to accept her as our very own mother. But why? For me, the other part of the answer is what Ramakrishna told M. How is it possible to realize Brahman without taking refuge in Shakti? The words that are used to call on him, the sound that is used to worship him, those are all functions of Shakti. You have originated from Shakti, and you move and walk by means of her power. So as Ramakrishna says, we have originated from Shakti, so we are her children. Will a child not acknowledge its mother? Moreover, we move and walk by means of her power, like the snake in motion. So we must acknowledge that power of our mother. That power is dwelling right within us, like fire's power to burn. Through this power we function. Again, we can remain in ignorance, or we can acknowledge her, realize her, and become free. She is one with Brahman. So it is through her grace, that we realize our oneness with Brahman. So we must worship that mother and take refuge like a child in that mother. And that mother goddess which Ramakrishna himself invoked and acknowledged was Kali. Moreover, we can understand from this that she is the mother of us all, the whole universe. No matter what race or religion or nationality or anything else, we are all her children, all brothers and sisters in her. Nowadays, a global consciousness has been awakened. It has been awakened by her. So we likewise need an awakening of a universal consciousness, of seeing the whole world as our own, as Sarada Devi says. And for that, we must accept all. We must accept everyone as her child. Again, Ramakrishna says we must take refuge in her. This is what she wants. Accept everything, the good, the bad, all of it. But see everything as the manifestation of her. It is all her. Accept her and dance the play of this life with her. See her, the mother, in all beings and things, in the good and in the bad, in everything. Then surrender to her, take refuge in her. After that, then we find that hiding behind that terrible mask is a real goddess, mother of pure love. And we find that she has a mysterious kind of magnet, of pure love that she uses to draw us to her. It's a love we cannot explain. Just ask Ram Prasad, ask Kamalakanta. Nowadays, as many of you have probably seen, the Dakshineshwar temple is extremely crowded. Whatever time you go there, few seconds darshan, that's it, pulled away. But about 30 or 35 years ago, if you went there early in the morning when the priests first opened up the temple, there were very few people. You could stand there and have darshan as long as you liked. And if you were lucky, you might see an old, thin, toothless man come and stand right outside the shrine. He was obviously poor, or perhaps he was a sadhu. He always wore an old, plain, worn-out dhoti, no shirt. He would just stand there and sing his heart out. He had a crackly voice, but his bhava, his mood, would melt a stone. There was no doubt in my mind, Kali really was his mother.